Section 1.5 deals with quadratic equations. Pause this video so that you can write down the definition of a quadratic equation. A quadratic equation is an equation that can be written in the general form of ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, where a, b, and c are real numbers, with a not equaling 0. A quadratic equation in X is also called a second-degree polynomial equation in X. Looking at our first example, again, we're going to be solving quadratic equations by factoring. There's several ways to solve quadratic equations, but the first method we'll be using is solving quadratic equations by factoring. Looking at this quadratic equation, this is 4x squared minus 2x equals to 0. Notice my highest exponent of my variable is squared. Therefore, this is a quadratic equation. Your first step in solving a quadratic equation by factoring is to look to see if the quadratic equation has a GCF. I see that this equation has a GCF of 2 and x. So I will need to write down my greatest common factor, the GCF being 2x, write down 2x, and divide each term through by 2x. Well, if you divide 4x squared divided by 2x, and if you divide 2x divided by 2x, what do you have left? Well, 4 divided by 2 gives you 2. X squared divided by x gives you x, minus, and 2x divided by 2x gives you 1. So we have factored this quadratic equation by taking out the greatest common factor. Since your GCF contains a variable, you must set that GCF equal to 0 to solve. So set each one of these factors, 2x equal to 0 and 2x minus 1 equal to 0. After you've factored, set each one of the factors equal to 0. Again, if your GCF contains a variable, you must set it equal to 0 because this is one of your answers. To solve for x, divide each side by 2. Therefore, you have x equals to 0. That's one of your answers. Solve for x in this equation. Add 1 to both sides. When you add 1 to both sides, you end up with 2x equals to 1. Divide both sides by 2. Therefore, x equals to 1/2. So the answer to this quadratic equation that we solved by factoring was 0 and 1/2.